love to send you some information on our church and find out how we can best serve you. So that's the best place to start. As many of you know, if you're new, you don't, but we're part of a network of churches, not just here in Atlanta, our 8 Atlanta area churches, but we have a network of churches we're a part of across the nation, around the world. You're gonna hear a lot more about that today. But today, the reason today is such a big day is not just because we're starting a new series, we're actually launching a new season in the life of our church, which is really, really exciting. And this season is something that we've been working on for a while, and this season is an important season for us. And later in the service, Andy's going to talk a little bit more about specifically what's involved in that. But as we're launching this new thing, it's big, and you're going to hear about it. You're going to hear more information. You've seen some of the stuff out in the lobby. If you haven't been to any of our vision nights, a lot of this information might be new. But today, you're probably going to find out some things about your church you didn't know that I think is going to make you more excited about being a part of Buckhead Church. Also, it's an exciting day today because if you have kindergarten through 5th graders, kids stuff is happening today, and I don't want to give it away too much, but it is a high-flying act, and it will be a slam dunk if you take your family to kids stuff today. That's all I'll tell you. It's going to be a lot of fun. But before we get to any of that, we're going to sing a little bit together, and we have some amazing people. You guys come on out. April and Kara and Glow and Aaron and Lauren are going to lead us today as we sing. Yeah, you could clap for them. That's awesome. Why don't you stand as you're clapping for them? If you're willing and able, love for you to stand up. We introduced a new song a couple weeks ago called Yahweh, We Love You. And that term, if you haven't been around church much, might be a term you're not familiar with, this name of God, Yahweh. But it was the name God gave himself. And here's what's wild is Yahweh is made up of 4 Hebrew words. So if you miss out on the rest of the service or you get checked out somehow, you're gonna learn something right up front here. 4 Hebrew words. And these 4 Hebrew words, when you say these words, it literally sounds like you're breathing if you were to say them in the original language. And it's the name that God gave himself. And what's amazing is when we breathe, we actually announce the name of God. You actually say the name of God when you breathe. And so with the breath that he's given us in our lungs today, we're gonna worship him. If you're new to worship, if you're new to singing, these are just us saying things that are true about God and things that for many of us, because of what he's done for us, have become expressions in our hearts. We'd love for you to jump in as you see fit. April's gonna lead us in this first song, Yahweh, We Love You. Before that, say hello to somebody. Welcome to Buckhead Church, and then we're gonna sing together.
I am. you're worthy of all of it. Your promises never fail. I've got stories I live to tell, so I'll pour out my praise again. You're worthy, God, you're worthy of all of it. Yeah. When I was lost and all alone, your presence was where I found home. 'Cause you were there and you're here right now. And in every high and every low, you never left me without hope. 'Cause you were good and you're good right now. 'Cause you were good and you're good right now. 'Cause I've witnessed your faithfulness. I've seen you breathe life within. So I'll pour out my praise again. 'Cause you're worthy, God, you're worthy of all of it. Your promises never fail. I've got stories I live to tell, so I'll pour out my praise again. 'Cause you're worthy, God, you're worthy of all of it. You're good and I've witnessed it. You're strong and I've witnessed it. You're constant, I've witnessed it. And I'm confident I'll see it again and again. You love and I've witnessed it. Yeah. You heal and I've witnessed it. Thank you, Lord. You save and I've witnessed it. And I'm confident I'll see it again. You're good, Lord. You're good and I've witnessed it. Yes. You're strong and I've witnessed it. You're constant, I've witnessed it. And I'm confident I'll see it again. You love and I've witnessed it. Yes. You heal and I've witnessed it. You save and I've witnessed it. And I'm confident I'll see it again. 'Cause I've witnessed your faithfulness. I've seen you bring life with it. So I'll pour
deserve the glory. You deserve the honor. You deserve the praise because, God, we have witnessed all the things that you've done in and through our lives. In every good season, God, you've been faithful. In every challenging season, you've been very present and right there, and you've carried us through time and time again. And God, even when we didn't understand, even when it was confusing, even when it didn't work out the way we thought, you have shown yourself to be the air that we breathe day in and day out. And so our response to you is, to God be the glory for all of the things that you have done. And even more so, we praise you in advance for all of the things that you are doing now and that you will do that we still haven't seen, that we can't even imagine or think of. You are worthy of praise even for that, God. So we glorify you. Our hearts are full of gratitude and praise to you for your goodness, for your faithfulness, for the fact that you are God and we are not. And so you hold the world in your hands, and everything that we could possibly need or ask for, God, you've already made provision for. So we thank you, we honor you, we praise you, and we glorify you for this. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. Amen. Hallelujah. God bless you. You may be seated. As Joel mentioned earlier, today we are kicking off an exciting new season in the life of our church. And so we're excited to share more about this with you. So check this out.
Great movement begins with an idea. An idea that is eventually embodied by someone who envisions something new, better, a preferred future. Convinced what could be, should be, they devote themselves to making it a reality. The greatest movement of all time was no different, with one notable exception. This movement began in the mind of God. For God so loved our broken world that he responded. He acted on our behalf, but not from a distance. He showed up. As one ancient writer stated it, he made his dwelling among us and assured us that his arrival, along with his message, was good news for all people, for all time. It was good news indeed. A king had come, a good king, to establish God's kingdom on earth. And everyone was and is invited to participate in it. As part of his kingdom plan, our good king launched what is widely acknowledged as the most consequential movement of all time, the ecclesia of Jesus. A multiplying assembly of men, women, and children that would come to be known as the church, God's catalyst for transformation personally, culturally, and globally. From the 1st century to the 21st century, every generation of Jesus followers and church leaders is faced with the challenge of how to best engage their culture with the good news as introduced and illustrated by Jesus. 30 years ago, a group of Atlanta residents came together to take on that very task. They were quick to acknowledge that their city did not need another church, but perhaps it did need a different kind of church. A church that was outward-facing, a church that reflected the tone, posture, and approach of the King, a church unchurched people would love to attend, a church that both churched and unchurched people would feel comfortable inviting friends and family to attend, a church that prioritized the faith of the next generation. Fueled by compassion for the people in their city, they established North Point Community Church. Since that first gathering in the fall of 1995, our church has grown from a single-site church to 8 local Atlanta area churches. Today, over 70,000 adults, students, and children are active in one of our 8 Atlanta area churches. Every weekend, thousands of children, middle school, and high school students experience environments that equip and inspire them to follow Jesus. Hundreds of young adults and college students, the generation famous for walking away from the church, are walking into our churches and experiencing firsthand that following Jesus is not an option, it's the best option. Week after week, we celebrate with air horns and confetti as adults, students, and children go public with their faith through baptism. In 2005, we launched the Irresistible Church Network, which serves and provides resources for over 200 like-minded churches nationally and globally. Today, over 600,000 adults, students, and children are engaged at one of our partner churches. But our impact, as well as our concern, is not limited to those who choose to step inside one of our buildings. From the very beginning, we've been committed to being the hands and feet of Jesus in our local communities. We want our communities to know we're here, to be glad we're here. And most importantly, we want our communities and the people in our communities to be better off because we're here. For 30 years, we have remained stubbornly committed to our original vision. And by God's grace and through the generosity and commitment of thousands of committed Jesus followers, we have been, by all human measures, extraordinarily successful. But we aren't finished. We have more potential and more opportunity than ever, which means we have more responsibility than ever as well. So we aren't stepping back and we aren't slowing down, just the opposite. We're launching something audaciously big. We're calling it Deeper, Wider. This 2-year generosity initiative will not only allow us to continue what we're currently doing locally, nationally, and globally, it will allow us to expand our impact by creating permanent homes for East Cobb Church and Decatur City Church, as well as secure locations for 2 new Atlanta area churches. This initiative will also provide funding to expand our partner network to over 350 churches nationally and globally. The result? We would impact nearly 2.5 million adults, children, and students on a weekly basis. Beyond that, the Deeper, Wider Generosity Initiative will fund the development of a digital strategy designed to engage the 70 million religiously unaffiliated people in our nation with the teaching of Jesus, and ultimately connect them with a local church. And this is just the beginning. At the end of his ministry, Jesus gave his followers a mission to make disciples of all nations, teaching them all he had taught them. For 30 years, that has been our intent, and the entire time, God has been with us. We are confident that he will remain with us as we continue to do all we can to further the agenda of our King. Every great movement begins with an idea that is eventually embodied by someone or a group of someones who envision something new, better, a preferred future. Join us as we seek to embody the greatest movement of all time, the church, the ecclesia of Jesus.
Yeah, I've seen that 10 times, and I still cry. So anyway, hey, thanks for joining us, all of our Atlanta area churches, those of you who are joining us from all over the country and literally all over the world. And if you're joining us from all over the country and all over the world, I'm especially glad that you're tuning in today because you are part of the reason that we're doing what we're doing. We're kicking off a generosity initiative across all of 8 of our Atlanta area churches. As you just saw, we're calling it Deeper, Wider. Many of you have heard about this and gotten some details. For others of you, this is the first time you're hearing about it. But the goal in the Deeper, Wider Generosity Initiative is to maximize our kingdom impact as a collection of churches locally, nationally, and globally. And when you leave here today, you're going to get this Deeper, Wider vision guide that's going to give you all the details, most of the details in terms of what this includes, what we want to accomplish. It's a big scope that you heard on the video. It really is an audaciously big goal. I'm not even sure it's possible, but we decided to attempt something that might be impossible, and that is okay. Now, here's the thing. If you haven't been here for very long, here's something you need to know about our collection of churches. What you have accomplished and what we've accomplished together really is amazing. I mean, 8 amazing churches in the Atlanta area, one of the most important cities in the United States. 70,000 active people. That's not a mailing list. These are people who are active in one of our 8 Atlanta churches, plus 200 churches in our network. Southside churches, you're tuning in today. You're part of that. You're an extension of what we do and mirror what we do, and we learn as much from you as maybe you learn from us. Athens Church. And then there are not only about 100 churches in the United States, but about 116 churches spread out across the globe that run our model, learn from us, take advantage of what we provide for them because they want to create outward-facing churches, not just in their cities, but in their country. And collectively, that's about 500,000 people that are impacted on a weekly basis because of what you do. But maybe as amazing as all of that is this. It's been 20 years since we've done any kind of fundraising with our entire organization. And here's how this works, and I understand this. You show up at your local church, whichever church you attend, you give money to that local church, and you look around and you think, hey, I hope that the money I'm giving is gonna help us do what we do here and support my family and all those kinds of things. And through the years, we've taken the small percentage of what we don't use locally, and we have invested in what we have been able to do nationally and globally. And while we've done a lot, and this is going to kind of explain a little bit of some of that a lot, we don't talk about that a lot because on Sunday morning we're busy talking about what's going on at the local campus, right? While we've done a lot, there is so much more we can do, and I'm convinced this is the season. Not only can we do it, but we must do it. We ought to do it. So I'm asking all of you at all of our Atlanta area churches, all of you at our network churches, all of you who watch online to engage with us in this initiative, to leverage our collective generosity in order to maximize our kingdom impact. You are making a kingdom impact locally and nationally and globally, whether you knew that or not. But I want us to put our foot on the gas and maximize our potential. But to do that, that's going to require all of us to maximize our personal generosity to this initiative. And here's the thing, this is what I want you to hear, for some of you especially. We're not doing this because your church needs your money. This isn't about your church needing your money. This is about the world needing your influence. Our nation and our world need more churches like your church. And what you are doing is working here, and what you're doing is working there. And entrepreneurial church leaders all over the country and all over the world want in. And we want to throw those doors open wide to include them, to create more outward-facing churches in the United States and in the world, along with some other things that are so exciting. A lot of that is right here. And think of it this way. If you're watching online, or maybe you have friends that watch online, but if you're watching online and you've ever thought, wow, I wish there was a church like this church. I'm at North Point today, or at Buckhead Church. If you visited Buckhead Church, or you're watching the Buckhead Church online stream, or any of our online streams, or you have visited Atlanta and one of our churches and you thought to yourself, I wish there was a church like this in our area. We do too. But we're not just gonna wish there was. We're gonna do everything in our power to ensure there is. In fact, one of the exciting initiatives that you can read about is we would like to create an outward-facing church in every single community in the United States of 50,000 people or more, so that everybody and every child and every college student and every single adult and every middle schooler and every high schooler could experience the kind of environments that your kids experience, because we wanna set the anchor deep in their hearts, and when they tend to stray, they won't be able to stray far, because we have anchored them to the actual first century version of what it means to follow Jesus. Now, if all this talk about money makes you nervous, I understand that. But here's what I want you to hear, so hear me out. 30 years ago, I was in front of a much smaller group of people, and I asked them to give generously to an experiment. It was an experiment. We had no members, we had no money, we had no property, we just had an idea. And that experiment, because of their generosity, became the church you are currently seated in. And I know those people. Sandra and I are some of those people. And we are so grateful we said yes. And we gave sacrificially, and I don't miss the money, and I would not go back and undo that decision if my life depended on it, because of what I have seen and what we have seen God do. And here's the thing. We're grateful, and 5 years from now, it's a 2-year campaign with a 5-year investment. 5 years from now, thousands of men, women, students, and children. Thousands will be grateful for you because of what you are about to do. Now, the other reason you don't have to get weird or feel weird about the preacher up here talking about money and asking you to give to a generosity campaign is this. People who have embraced, and many of you are here, you get what I'm about to say. People who have embraced what Jesus taught about money, and people who have embraced as a lifestyle what Jesus said about possessions would tell you they are never going back. And as one of those, I would tell you I would never, ever go back. And Sandra and I are so fortunate that we were raised in homes and raised in churches that understood tithing and understood first and best giving and understood the value of investing in what God's doing in a community and in the world. And we just want those of you who have never experienced that because of fear, because of debt, because of whatever reason, because of you can't trust the church and all the stories you hear, we want you to engage. And I'm telling you, you will never meet a follower of Jesus who allowed their money to follow Jesus and his kingdom who regrets that. So you don't have to be nervous about this. We don't have to be weird about this. This is just one more opportunity to follow Jesus. Now, all of that begins with the whole idea of following Jesus with our money, the whole idea of what it means to be a steward or a follower of Jesus with our possessions and everything. It all comes back to one simple idea. And today, for a few minutes, I just want to introduce that one simple idea. For some of you, this might be review. For some of you've heard this before, but you've sort of drifted from it. I get that. For some of you, this may be a novel idea or a first time you've heard about it. And at the end, I'm going to ask you to spend a week thinking about it, but not doing anything about it. There's no real application for today's message other than a thought exercise. But it all goes back to acknowledging and applying one simple truth. King David said it first, and then King Jesus came along and reiterated it later. And King David made this statement or sort of exported or teased out this truth during a prayer that he prayed. And we're going to look at the part of that prayer in just a minute. But here's the one statement from King David's prayer all those years ago that kind of says it all. Here's what he said in a prayer to God. He said, everything in heaven and earth is yours. Everything in heaven and earth, he said, God, is yours. In other words, God, you own it all. And we are just managers, and we are simply temporary stewards of it. So here's the context of this prayer. It's kind of interesting. King David was in probably his mid to late 50s. He had settled all the border disputes around the ancient kingdom of Israel. So there was peace in the land. And he decided it was time for God, Yahweh, to have his own temple. All the pagans, religions in the world, they had temples. And God, Israel's God, Yahweh, lived in a tent. They call it a tabernacle. And it had been a tent or a tabernacle since the days of Moses that required a lot of maintenance and a lot of fixing up because, again, it wasn't a permanent structure. So David decides, I'm going to build God a permanent structure. And so before he goes to work, a prophet came to see him named Nathan. And the prophet Nathan said to David, God spoke to me. And David, a couple of things. First of all, God's not asking for a building because he's the mobile God. He doesn't need a building. He's not tied to a piece of geography. But he appreciates the sentiment. But you can't build God the temple because you're the king. You're the warrior king. There's too much blood on your hands. So your son can build the temple, but you can't build it. And David accepted no as an answer, but then he decided to go to work and collect all the raw materials for this extraordinary structure that later his son Solomon would build. And this is why the first temple in Jerusalem was called Solomon's temple. So he goes to work to get all the raw materials because this is going to be an extraordinary building campaign, or not campaign, but a building enterprise. So he begins to pull all the materials together, and he personally funds out of his own wealth the first round of materials, and then he announces his intention to all the influencers in the city of Jerusalem and all the influencers in the region, the military leaders, the city council, the wealthy families, the people who have influence, government officials. And he says to all of them, I want us to build our God a temple, and it needs to be magnificent. And the text tells us that when he made this announcement, that they gave willingly, because as you read the story, they saw this as an opportunity to participate in something grand and glorious for their God, and they didn't want to miss out. And then as the influence people, the influencers in the community began to give toward this project, then the common folk came along and they're like, well, we don't want to miss out either. And these were the people that had very, very little extra. But the text says when the common people, the poorer people, saw their leaders giving generously to this project, the text says that the people rejoiced at the willing response of their leaders, for they had given freely and wholeheartedly to the Lord. So there's this outpouring of generosity toward this project in a way to honor God. So as all of this is happening, David is so overwhelmed by the generosity of the people and the generosity of the nation that he gathers the leaders and he gathers as many people as he could, and to launch this project of bringing together all the resources necessary, the money necessary to buy the resources. He prays a prayer. And the chronicler recorded this prayer, and I want to read you a part of this prayer because it's so right on the nose in terms of the posture of anyone who trusts God, and especially in our generation, anyone who follows Jesus. It just explains so clearly how we are to view our wealth, view our income, view our potential, and view our potential collectively as it relates to furthering God's kingdom in the world. And embedded in this prayer really is the posture that I hope all of us will adopt during this season of our church. Here's what David prays. I'm just going to read it to you and maybe make a few comments. He says this. He says, yours, Lord, is the greatness and the power and the glory and the majesty and the splendor. And the reason is, he says, because everything in heaven and earth is yours. It all belongs to you. Anytime you see splendor and glory or greatness in a person or in nature or anywhere, that's all a manifestation of the greatness and the glory and the splendor of God. And then he says this, yours, Lord, and this is coming from a king. This is so unusual for a king to say something like this, even now. Yours, Lord, is the kingdom. In other words, it's not even my kingdom. I'm the king, but I'm smart enough to know it's not my kingdom because everything belongs to you. Yours, Lord, is this kingdom, and you are exalted as head over all. I might wear the crown, but we are not confused. We know who the head of this nation is. It is yours. It's your kingdom. It is not mine. And then listen to this. It's so powerful. If this was front and center the way we lived our lives. He says, wealth and honor, position, recognition, wealth and honor, we know they come from you. And you are the ruler of all things. In other words, David says, look, I'm not confused. I have what I have because you gave it to me for a time. And this is true of me as well. And this is true of all of you as well. All of us who have extra, all of us have extra because God allowed us to manage the extra, whether it's position or influence or stuff or just extra money, the money that we save, the extra, we don't live hand to mouth, that ultimately this came from God. And yes, I'm not ignoring the fact that you worked really hard and you took advantage of those opportunities that came your way. I mean, how many times have you told your story or you've heard the story? It's like I was going along doing my thing and then an opportunity came my way. And if you're a theist, if you believe in God, if you're a Christian, when that opportunity came your way, your instinct was to say, thank you, God, for this opportunity that came my way. And you leveraged it and you took advantage of it and you worked really hard and God honored your work. So yes, you had a role to play, but ultimately we're smart enough to not be confused either, to know that ultimately we don't control the future and we don't control the variables. We took advantage of those opportunities. And David saw what some people in his culture miss, and David saw what unfortunately many people in our culture miss, that there are just too many variables to ever be arrogant. There are just too many variables, too many things that are out of our control to ever take credit, even for our hard work and taking advantage of the opportunities that come our way. That our success and our prosperity, yes, it's a result of some things we did, but ultimately we're smart enough to know we didn't determine our health. We didn't determine where we were born. We didn't determine when we were born. We didn't determine who we were born to. We didn't determine what it was in us that gave us the drive to work our way out of the environment we were born into. There are just too many variables that there's never any need. There's never any room for arrogance. That ultimately, to put it bluntly. Arrogance is a reflection of ignorance. Arrogance says, I'm too ignorant to understand that I don't control the variables that have allowed me to be as successful as I am. And David is declaring before the whole nation, I'm not confused. I know why I'm the king. I know why I have this position. And I know why I have the margin I do to build this temple for God. Then he says this, he says, in your hands are strength and power to exalt and to give strength to all. In other words, again, he's acknowledging publicly, I am the king only because you chose me to be the king. That I did not choose myself or create this opportunity for myself. And maybe in this moment or leading up to this prayer, he thinks back to how he became the king. And some of you, if you grew up in church, we remember this story. That God says to the prophet Samuel, I'm done with this king. We're going to have a new king. I want you to go to Jesse's house. And I want you to get all of his sons together. Jesse had a bunch of sons. And I'm going to choose the next king of Israel from Jesse's sons. Remember this amazing story? We teach our children this. It's extraordinary. So the prophet Samuel goes to Jesse's home and says, Jesse, I've got some good news for you. There's going to be a dynasty change, and you're going to be the father of the king. Gather your sons, and God is about to choose one of your sons to be the next king of Israel. Remember this story? And so instead, all the sons come out, and Eliab, the oldest, he's tall, he's kingly, he's strong. And Samuel's like, easy, this is the guy. And God says, no. He goes to the next one, no. And the prophet's like, Jesse, this awkward question, do you have any more sons? Because God says none of these guys are it. Remember the story? And Jesse's like, well, there's one other guy, but we didn't even invite him. It can't possibly be him. Little David, he's just taking care of the sheep. Surely, there's king material. Samuel says, I won't leave till you bring him. And in walks David. God says, that's the guy. Samuel's like, this is it. David knew this. He was smart enough not to forget. He was smart enough to remember. He was smart enough to keep front and center. There are too many variables in life to take credit for our success, for our wealth, for our extra, for our margin, for our opportunity, that everything in the heavens and earth, including opportunity, wealth, and strength, and honor come from God and from God alone. And if we have any, the correct posture is gratitude and humility. And here's how you know that's true. Because when you meet successful people who are humble and are quick to give credit to the people around them, and ultimately quick to give credit to God, you are moved by that, and you are impressed by that, and you are inspired by that, because you know they, with all their success, they are not confused. And then this. Again, he tips his hat to yet another posture for us to live by. In fact, this is the posture to live by that I just want to promise you that if you assume this posture, you will always be glad you did. And if you don't assume this posture, you'll look back and, well, you wish you had. Here's what he says. This is amazing. He's like, but who am I? But who am I? He's thinking about, he's the king, he's got all this opportunity, he's got this wealth, he's got this, but who am I? Why me? Why me? And then he extends it to the nation. But who am I? And who are my people? Who are we? Who am I and who are we that we should be able to give as generously as this? He asked the question that every honest, wealthy person asks at some point along the way. Why me and why not them? Why me and why not them? And because we live in a world where we know what's happening in the world globally and economically, you have all had that thought, and you've all asked that question in your own way. You look at what's happening in the world. You go on a global X trip. You meet with people who just don't have the opportunities we have and don't have the wealth that we have. And again, in many cases, they're hand to mouth and they have so much joy. But at the same time, you can't help but wonder, this is the honest question, why me? Who am I? Why us? Who are we? And again, this was a culture where most people literally lived hand to mouth. When Jesus said, give us this day our daily bread, that was a literal prayer because food didn't keep. There was grain and there was wine. Everything else pretty much spoiled. So daily bread meant daily bread, and if you ran out of grain or if there was a famine or if the harvest didn't come in, entire villages would starve. And David is saying, we actually have extra, but why us? Why us and why my people? Because he was saying that what you all are doing, talking about his kingdom, what you're doing to support this initiative, many people couldn't do because they don't have extra. You've honored us to be those, he says, who can. Who are we? Who am I? That God would randomly choose us. Again, I know you come on a Sunday, you show up on a Sunday, or you participate in a small group. Many of you, thousands of you serve, and you see a little bit of the ministry that our churches are doing. But as somebody who's in charge of this whole amazing thing, and I look at the impact, and it's not me, the impact that we have had, it is overwhelming and it is amazing. And it is easy to be humble because our best ideas weren't my ideas. In fact, every once in a while, somebody will hear about our organization, they'll say, Andy, was this your vision? And I always answer the same way. I say, we passed my vision at year 5. After year 5, it's all been, are you kidding me? Okay? So I am the most amazed and I am the most grateful. And I ask this question, God, why me and why us and why this opportunity? Because everything belongs to you and everything comes from you. That is the posture to live with. That is the posture you never regret. And you know what else that does? That is the posture that keeps your hands open for God to give and to take. Because at the end of the day, you say with John the Baptist, a man or a woman can only receive what is given to them from heaven. That's part of my prayer every single day. And then David continues and he says this, everything comes from you. And then again, this is amazing. Everything comes from you, and we have, look at this, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. Lord our God, he says, all this abundance, all this extra, all this margin, all this beyond our daily bread and beyond our daily needs, all of this abundance that we have provided for building you a temple, for your holy name, comes from your hand, and all of it belongs to you. Again, he's saying, we are not confused. We're not confused. We are not giving you anything. We're simply giving it back to you because ultimately it came from you. When this idea goes from your head to your heart, it is a game changer, not just in terms of your money and your possessions. This is a game changer in terms of our entire lives. I can attest to that. And I've seen that play out in my life. I've seen that play out in the lives of so many people. Now, to be clear, okay, we're not building a temple, all right? That's the good news. This is not a capital campaign. You know, capital campaign, you've all been a part of those where an organization is going to build a thing, so you give your money to build the thing, or they're going to buy a thing, or they're going to start a thing. So this is way broader than that. We are positioning ourselves to maximize our ability to be conduits through which Jesus continues to build his church because he promised he's going to do it anyway, and we have been invited to participate in it, to enlarge his kingdom, to expand his reign and his rule in the hearts and the lives of men, women, students, teenagers, senior adults, every kind of person in every nation in the world. And this is what we've been doing for the last 30 years. But to maximize our collective impact, we have to maximize our personal generosity. And to maximize our generosity, here's the thing. We can't think like owners who donate to the church. And if that has been your mindset, I want to challenge you, at least in these next few weeks as we talk about this, I want to challenge you to try to begin thinking differently. You are not an owner who has some money and who has some wealth, and occasionally or even systematically, you're going to donate to the church. That's not going to get us there. We have got to embrace this mindset that is introduced in the Old Testament that Jesus reiterated in the New Testament, that we are simply managers and stewards, that everything belongs to God. And for whatever reason, he has allowed us to have extra for the benefit of his kingdom, that we have to adopt the posture of a manager. When you do, 3 things are gonna happen, and I'll wrap this up. Here's 3 promises. When you begin to think this way, when this becomes the mindset, when this becomes the framework, number 1, you will view everything you own, not just cash and not just a percentage. You will view everything you own as a potential tool to further the agenda of your king. Your kitchen table, your dining room table, your unfinished basement, your finished basement, your backyard, that extra car, a vacation home, whatever it is, you will begin to see, wait a minute, this isn't about giving money to a church. This is about everything I own is a potential tool to maximize God's influence in the world and to expand the kingdom of God. And again, many of you have experienced this, because hundreds and hundreds of you at all of our campuses and at all of our network churches, you have opened your home to small groups to meet in your home. You've leveraged your house. You've leveraged your basement. You've leveraged an extra bedroom. You've leveraged your home for middle schoolers and high schoolers. And some of you are real Christians. You opened your home to middle school boys and high school boys, and it's like, oh my goodness, and it's like, how long will it smell? Anyway, so the point is, many of us, we understand this. It's not just cash, it's not just money. If everything belongs to God, and I begin to view everything as a tool that God uses to expand his kingdom through me, that is a game changer. You know what else will happen? And I'm not being critical of anybody in particular. You gotta figure this out for yourself. You're gonna collect fewer collectibles. And you're gonna begin to liquidate things that aren't doing anybody any good. Not because it's a sin to have those things. I'm just telling you, when you adopt this mindset, you see all of that differently. And you'll never go back and you'll never regret it. Number 2, you'll give first and adjust your lifestyle accordingly. You will give first and adjust your lifestyle accordingly. This is not new. I've been teaching this for 30 plus years to all of you. You've heard me every once in a while, I come back to it. Give, save, live. Give, save, live. You give first, you save second, you live on the rest. You give first, you fund God's kingdom, you save second, you fund your own kingdom, and then you live on the rest. You give, you save, you live. We teach our kids this. We've used jars, we've used apps. We want our kids to grow up giving first, living, saving second, and then living on the rest. You'll think in terms, when you adopt this mindset that I'm not an owner, I'm a manager, you will adopt a first and best mindset rather than leftover and last. Most Americans give leftover and last. Don't be most Americans. Leftover and last means I've financed my kingdom, I got everything I want for now, and they need some money, so what can I afford to give? This is not about what can you afford to give. You just need to erase that mindset. That's not what we're talking about. What can I afford to give? And what can I afford to give right now? That's how most people think, but that's not how stewards think. That's not how managers of God's wealth and margin and money think. They think differently than that. So it's not leftover and last. It's first and it's best. It's give, save, live on the rest. And then the third thing that's gonna happen, and I could spend a lot of time on this, and I'll try not to. And I couldn't decide whether or not to say this, but I'm just gonna say it, and please take it within the context that I mean it. This is kind of a guy thing a little bit. Now, I know men and women both wrestle with, stuff and money and possessions, and I get that. But this next thing that'll happen, and maybe it's just my experience in talking to men and about their money and their possessions. But here's the thing. If you flip the script and even just begin to think, don't do anything. Just begin to think in terms of, okay, I am a manager and a steward. I'm not an owner because everything belongs to God. When you flip the script, here's what's going to happen. A promise. You're going to find it easier to surrender your entire life to your king. I have in my mind this video. I don't know if anybody's ever made this, but I imagine somebody being baptized, and as they're going down, they're holding their wallet up out of the water, and then they come back up like, okay, you can have all of me, but you can't have this. The reason I say that is this. Listen up. We are all inclined, not just men, we're all inclined. We are all inclined to equate wealth, income, and our stuff with our personal value. We're all inclined to equate or to conflate and to get mixed up about the fact that what we have and what we drive and where we live and how much money we have in the bank and when we can retire, we have a tendency to equate that with our identity. So here's the challenge. So giving up control of your money, and here's why I say control of your money. When you decide to give first, that feels like you're giving up control of your money. Before I know what's going to happen this month, I'm going to give first. When giving up control of our wealth feels like we are giving up control or losing control of our lives. That's what it feels like. Because we equate our money and our possessions and our lifestyle with our lives. And this is amazing. And Jesus saw us coming. And he says, hey, let me ask you a question. And I'm going to give you the Jesus question. And we all know the right answer. And then Jesus is going to say, well, since you know the right answer, why don't you live that way? But here's the question. He saw us coming. He says, okay, I get that whole identity thing and, what people think, and you equate what you have with money. But come on, guys. Come on, ladies and gentlemen. Is not life more than what you eat, what you wear? That's what he said. Here's what I say. Isn't life more than what you drive and where we vacation and how much we've saved and when we can retire and how much we accumulate and how much we're going to leave our kids? Isn't life more than all that? To which we would say, yeah, but, and Jesus is like, I'm not done. Let me say it in a different way. He's so brilliant. He says, by worrying about how much you make, didn't make, should make, could make, how much they make, by worrying about all this, by thinking about all this, by kind of measuring your progress in life by, what you don't make, should make, could make, and how much they make. He says by worrying about that, here's his actual version, by worrying about all that, does it add hours to your life? In other words, this is so brilliant. By worrying about all that, does it add to life? In other words, if you've equated your life with all this stuff accidentally, but worrying about all that stuff and having all that stuff does nothing to extend your life. In fact, worrying about it might subtract hours from your life. Then Jesus says, come on, obviously your life isn't any of that. So quit living like it is. He says to me, and he says to all of us, here's the thing, then I'm done. Whatever we equate with life, savings, things, grades, where you go to school, professional success, whatever you equate with life, we will cling to as if our lives depend on it. This is why we cling to our stuff. This is why the whole idea of pre-deciding to give feels like I'm out of control because I'm losing my life. It's why we worry. We're confused. And Jesus would like to unconfuse all of us. You'll find it easier to surrender your entire life to your King when you acknowledge and begin to live as if you are a manager and not an owner. When you take off the owner hat, like King David, and say, okay, I'm not confused. I'm the king. I didn't make myself king. I got all this extra and opportunity. That all came from you. I am managing it for a time. Here's the thing. We cannot, this is why this third point, there's so much to say, I'll keep moving. We cannot surrender to our actual king. Men, let me just talk to us a second. Men, we cannot, it's not that we don't want to. It's not that we don't try. We cannot surrender to our actual king until we dethrone the imposter king. And Jesus knew that our attitude and approach to wealth management, and wealth accumulation was going to be the number, he says this, we'll talk about it in a couple of weeks, is going to be the number one competitor with who rules and reigns in our life. And I'm just telling you, show me a man who's dealt with this and has surrendered all of this to King Jesus, and I will show you a man who will never go back to living the other way, and who has more peace, and who probably has more prosperity because he's redefined what prosperity really is. So this week, here's your assignment. I just want you to practice thinking like managers, okay? So this is gonna be kind of fun because you don't have to do anything. Now, and don't get in the car and honey, that's what I've been don't do that, okay? We'll see, because one of you, come on, I know how it is. The less generous person marries the not so generous, The more generous person, somebody wants to give away everything. The other person's like, if I let him do, if I let her, we're not gonna. I get it. You're dating that person, and it's like, yeah, don't have that conversation. This is a thought exercise you're gonna do individually. We'll have conversations later. I just want you this week to think, okay, what would I do in this situation if I really thought about myself as a manager, not an owner? What would I do in this situation as you face different conflicts or tension as it relates to finances or planning or whatever it might be, or just stuff in your home or stuff that's not in your, what if I really thought in terms of I'm not an owner, I'm a manager? What would it look like if you really believed and embraced the idea that everything in heaven and earth is his? What would that look like? What would that change? What kind of tension does that create in you? I want you to pay attention to that tension and do the exercise. And we'll pick it up right there in part 2 of Deeper, Wider. But don't go anywhere. Right now, I'm going to ask somebody from all of our Atlanta area churches to come up and provide you with some important next steps. And yes, that would be me.
That's me. That was my cue. I was a little late on that. Hey, real quick before you take off today, some important things I want you to know. As Andy was saying, this series, the message series, is really about challenging, encouraging you to take a deeper step of faith in God personally, to see a wider impact for us collectively. We want you to have all the information while going through that. So I want to tell you about a couple of things that are really important. All of you are going to receive one of these on your way out. We'd love for you to take one per household. This is the Deeper, Wider vision guide that he was talking about. Here's what's in this, and it's awesome. It's more than just a plan. There's historical information, so it's a look back of the history of your church if you're not familiar with that. There's current reality. Here's our current influence and breadth of scope of ministry. That's in here. And then also future plans and projections. That's all in here. And if you're watching us online, by the way, a lot of this information's on our website too, and more information in addition to what's in here is on deeperwider.com. You can go to that website. You can scan the QR code on your chair. It'll take you there. And if you live outside the Atlanta area and you're going, how do I get one of those books? You can download the PDF that's on the website on deeperwider.com. There's also some incredible resources on there. If you're in a small group, we have a small group curriculum that has some additional bonus content that we've recorded. Those videos are on there. Your small group leader already has links to this stuff. We have a small group curriculum that you can discuss with your small group. Also, if you're parents, you have kids or teenagers, we have some parent resources on there. As you're talking to your kids, as we're talking about generosity throughout our church, from kids all the way through adults, there's some parent resources for you to have some discussions with your kids. That's on that website, as well as a 15-day devotional that I would encourage all of you to participate in. I'm going to participate in this with my wife and our 2 teenagers, but there's a 15-day devotional that you can click on in there to participate along with us in this series. We're going to continue to challenge in the next couple of weeks for you to pray big prayers. And I'll just say this, these prayers we're asking you to pray and these things we're asking you to consider, like Andy talked about today, this is not because God needs something from you, that we need something from you. This is because I really believe God wants something for you and wants something to do something new in your life, in and through your life, and in and through us as a church in this season. So in addition, in this vision guide on the inside, you're going to see there's a commitment card. And you're going to see this and you're going to go, what do I do with a commitment card? I want to tell you this up front really quick. Some of you are going to look at this and you're going to open this up and there's boxes and there's places to calculate things. Here's what I want you to hear me say. I'm going to say it 2 times. This is not a financial exercise. This is not a financial exercise. This is a faith exercise. This is not a financial exercise. This is a faith exercise. Here's what I'm hoping. In fact, there's a QR code to a video that I recorded that will lead you through this exercise. And we've created it as a discipleship tool. This is probably different than any other commitment card or pledge card you've ever experienced before, because we are not creating this as a financial exercise. We're not asking you what can you afford to give, how can you resource this. We're asking you to go, okay, God, if I change my mindset and you're the owner and I'm just a manager, what would you have me do? How do you want me to participate? This video, if you scan that QR code, will lead you through this faith exercise in a way that I believe will be challenging. You can do it with your spouse. You can do it. You'll discuss this within your small groups. And then several weeks from now, there's going to be an opportunity for you to turn this in. If God's leading you to participate on March 9th, some of you have heard about this. You've come to our a previous meeting, or you come to one of our vision nights, and you've been praying through this. You're ready to go. On March 9th, there's an advanced commitment night. And anybody who's wanting to lead the way, a lot of our leaders, volunteers, I know some of you've asked me, hey, when do you've already had one of these, when do I turn that in? There's an advanced commitment night for anybody who wants to go first and lead the way, and it's up in Alpharetta at North Point. We're gonna invite people from all of our Atlanta area churches that wanna lead the way. It's gonna be a special night on Sunday, March 9th. We'll give you more details. In fact, there's details on the website about that, but we'll tell you more about that in the coming weeks. But here at Buckhead Church, there's also a Commitment Sunday that's happening a month from now on March 23rd. So you got lots of time to engage, whether it's through your small group, through the devotional, through the content in this series. Obviously, there will be discussion questions and things that you can consider each and every week, as well as the content that's within here. Beyond that, I just tell you this, there's no hidden secrets, there's no hidden agendas, there's no questions off limits. If you have questions that go beyond anything that you see here, or you're curious or you're skeptical, that is okay. I do not want you to walk away without your question being answered. So we've developed a kiosk out in the lobby, deeper, wider kiosk. There's people that will be at that kiosk at all times. If you have a question, you can go to them and ask the question. And if they don't have the question, they will point you in the right direction, or they will send that to me to make sure that you get your question answered. But they're there to help out. If you have any questions or there's any confusion about any of this, we want to make sure you get your questions answered. I really do believe this is one of the most exciting seasons in the life of our church. If you're here at Buckhead Church today and you came to this church after we moved into this campus, I just want you to know, I was a part of a group of people when I was asked years ago to participate in giving towards this church and giving towards this campus. And there was a group of people that was, again, smaller than the group of people we have now that participated in that. And because of them, we have a church here. You have church to walk into. There's so much extraordinary ministry that's happening here. So I hope you'll lean in this season, and you'll consider how God might be challenging you and encouraging you to participate in this exciting season of our church. Until then, until next week, here's what I'd love for us to do. As always, you hear me say this. I want us, as we've done for 30 years, I want us to be the church in our community. Let's go be the church where we live, work, and play. And we'll see you next week right back here at Buckhead Church. Have a great week.
Woo!